All right, guys, this is Canen. I'm going to be the host for today's podcast. We want to thank everybody in the Discord for joining us today for episode 2 of Vertcoin Talk. We're also going to be streaming this over on the Vertcoin YouTube channel, so if you don't have a subscription to that yet, go ahead and head on over there. We have a few members of the marketing team with us here today. With us, we got B17Z, which also is Ben. We have Plankton. We have Harrison, who has also joined us for this. And am I forgetting anybody else? I think we're. Flack is also going to be moderating the chat channel. So whenever you're asking questions in the questions channel, which is above where you hear us right now in the answers channel, you can ask questions throughout the event. If we see anything that's pertinent to the topic we're talking about right now, we'll go ahead and address that question. But otherwise, we're going to hold all questions till the end of the talk. So hope you guys enjoy. And guys, if you would just want to introduce yourselves, I know some of you guys were on the last podcast, but you can go ahead and let everybody know who you are. You can start with Ben, if you want to give a little brief synopsis about what you do for the marketing team.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, hey guys, I'm Ben, B17Z, and I am part. I do a lot of writing for them, like some of the pieces. I do some edits and stuff like that as well. And in addition, like some you might or with Vertcoin. Base.
Ben, it sounds like your audio is cutting in and out just a little bit. We can work on getting that stable. You guys know Plankton, Harrison. You guys just introduce yourself real quick, and then we can start diving into our first topic.
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, I'm Plankton from Australia, as you can probably work out, and I made the recent Vertcoin website, so the new website, and I'm currently designing the Lightning interface, so the lit interface for the mobile and the desktop and tablet interfaces that will eventually go with Litbox, yeah, so happy to be here.
And hey, everybody. I'm sure you all know me. I'm a moderator, and I'm sure you've seen me bring that band hammer down a couple times. So now I'm here. So,
All right, awesome. So the first thing that we're going to talk about during today's podcast, we're going to go over the university outreach update. Ben B17Z, he is kind of taking charge of university outreach, especially in New York City, wanting to reach out to university students and things of that nature. And he's got a few talks, and he has another person, Ray, who is working with him on the university stuff. Ben, if you want to take it away with some stuff that you're doing out in the university sphere.
My New York, recently they just had a hackathon, and I reached out to the moderators of the hackathon and asked if I can do a little bit of a talk for the hackathon. And I was going to talk about cryptocurrencies. I was going to talk about Vertcoin, and the turnout was amazing. There were about 300 people there. It was fantastic. A lot of people were very interested. So the idea that came up to mind was that Vertcoin does need some help on the contribution side and in programming, and university students, the young talent there are would be fantastic for that, especially they do stuff on the side while they're learning, and especially a lot of them that do want to get into the blockchain space. So the idea is that what Canen and I were thinking about were just if I can go around to especially around local universities and try to gauge the talent, see if we can get sponsor some hackathons for different universities, then we can attract some really cool talent that can help on the programming side. Now also Ray Voci, also on the marketing team, was able to actually score a talk not too long from now, April 14th, I believe it is. If you're in the Cleveland area and you are interested in like listening to him talk, he's going to be at the Young Americans for Liberty Summit in April 14th. He's going to be talking about cryptocurrencies. He's probably going to be talking about Vertcoin as well. So you should definitely, if you're in the Cleveland area, go check that out. In addition, so for me, I'm probably going to go back to Binghamton, and I'm in talks with Cornell University and New York University to see if I could, do some talks over there. I will be going back to Binghamton, and this time around, I wasn't able to like live stream the talk or anything like that. But this time around, when I go back, I will be able to contact whoever I need to contact, and we could get this like talk live stream so you guys can see it.
Awesome. So, that's just a brief update on kind of what we're doing on the university front. If you have anything you want to contribute to the university space, we do have a channel here in our Discord that is devoted to university outreach. Go in there, post your ideas, communicate, and if you need anything from strategies to posters, flyers, talking points, things of that nature, if you want to talk about blockchain or Vertcoin specifically, that is a great resource for anybody who's interested in trying to do a little outreach on the university front. So the next topic we want to get onto is, or does anybody else who is on the podcast have anything to say about the university outreach? No? Okay. All right. Let's go into Vitalik's response to ASICs and kind of how Ethereum is they're on this ASIC battle right now where the majority of the community kind of wants to fork to not allow ASICs, but Vitalik he really doesn't have a comment about it. He doesn't really want to go into doing any real work to avoid it. So what's everybody's thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we've seen a quite a substantial shift in climate towards ASICs. So with the fair mining campaign, it's really what we've seen is a massive response from people across multiple communities, and we can see that the communities are actually quite interested in having equality across their consensus systems, and they're quite worried about ASICs in general. So we have seen from multiple communities so far is that we've seen Ethereum, Vitalik come out and publicly say that he doesn't agree with a forking Ethereum, and obviously their community isn't too happy about what he has to say. So, and we've actually seen more recently, I think it was earlier on today, saw Zcash actually mention something similar, that if a ASIC actually came onto their network, they wouldn't be forking either. So it raises some interesting points, and I'm sure the communities will find, if they're really interested in ASIC resistance, they will find their way over to Vertcoin and what we have to actually say. So I'm sure everyone has their own long-term solution in how we're going to deal with ASICs, but it really depends on your frame of reference in terms of timing. So some people say it's just a growing pain for Bitcoin, like everything will eventually be decentralized in the future anyway, and some people see it as a more immediate problem that needs to be dealt with. So it's we'll really see how this evolves in the future weeks and coming months.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because in the Ethereum white paper, if you like to study that stuff like I do, in the blockchain space, in the Ethereum white paper, and it's going to be a little bit long-winded over here, I'm going to just recite it to people. So the current intent at Ethereum is to use a mining algorithm where miners are required to fetch random data from the state, compute some randomly selected transactions from the N blocks in the blockchain, and return the hash of the result. This has two important benefits. First, Ethereum contract can include any kind of computation. So an Ethereum ASIC would essentially be an ASIC for general computation. We'll take note of that in a second. CUI, a better CPU. Second, mining requires access to an entire blockchain, forcing miners to store the entire blockchain and at least be capable of verifying every transaction. This removes the need for centralized mining pools. Although mining pools can still serve the legitimate role of evening out the randomness of the reward distribution, this function can be served equally well by peer-to-peer pools with no central control. This model is untested, and there may be difficulties along the way in avoiding certain clever optimizations when using contract execution as a mining algorithm. Anyone to poison the well, quote unquote, by introducing a large number of contracts into the blockchain specifically designed to stymie certain ASICs. The economic incentives exist for ASIC manufacturers to use such a trick to attack each other. Thus, the solution we are developing is ultimately an adaptive, economic, human solution rather than a purely technical one. So to just distill that down, the whole point was that they were going to try to be ASIC resistant, and now Vitalik is saying no action because it'll take too much effort. But the whole in the white paper itself, they're trying to promote this decentralization. As we know, it's very toxic, the ASICs in this space, especially when such a centralized entity such as Bitmain controls most of the hash power in many of the main coins that are in the space, Bitcoin, Litecoin, and stuff like that. So that's why it's interesting to me why he doesn't want to go for at least a hard fork, especially that I don't know how far they are from their solution, whether it be proof of stake or whatever the case may be, but it suddenly becomes a little bit of an issue right now. What do you guys think?
I think it's definitely an issue. If you actually outline it in the white paper as being one of the core focuses and it hasn't been addressed, and you didn't just choose not to address it, it's kind of, I don't know, it feels a bit. I know that some of the community members would be quite betrayed because there was a strong feeling to actually get rid of these ASICs off the network. So I know eventually they really want to move to proof of stake, but in terms of when, last time I heard about that, I think it was at least 18 months away. So again, it's really the time scale that everyone's looking at. Is it an immediate threat where in Bitcoin's case, it's getting a bit worrying that Bitmain potentially has sort of 38%, or I think it's 38%, assuming they own most of the pool. Yeah, well, that's assuming they own most of the pool. That they could own that much hash power of Bitcoin. So, is that truly just a growing pain, or is that an actual threat? Again, it's quite divided on what people see as a threat and just growing issues.
Well, I think it's r/Twitter say, "Oh, Vertcoin doesn't do anything. What do they really do other than be ASIC resistance?" And I'm sure everybody here knows the fact of the matter is we do way more than just be ASIC resistance. But I think the fact that we are committed to that is really downplayed and not given the attention it deserves. Like using this Ethereum thing as an example, imagine if Vertcoin suddenly had an ASIC on the network and then the devs were like, since we said that a long time ago, we're not gonna fork it off the network anymore. We have ASICs now, it'd be a big deal. So
I think the passion behind being ASIC resistance is where you can really gauge how much the team behind the project really cares about it. I was a little disappointed that Vitalik he kind of had this, this seems like a lot of work. I don't really feel like dealing with it. It's not that big of a deal. To me, that shows that obviously this hasn't been at the forefront of his mind anytime soon. I know our developers and our team would be highly passionate and highly ready and busting their tail to make sure that if a rumor came up that there was an ASIC, that we would have plans and protocols in place in order to be able to fork immediately to resist that.
Well, we had a question in our questions channel about that. Let me see if I can find it. Something about in the event of an ASIC, what is the team's? Here it is. To add on what Josh said, how fast would the Vertcoin team react from the moment an ASIC is to the algorithm? Obviously, you know the process of how the dev plans something like.
So there's two, from what I know, there's two replacement algorithms. There's one that's just a slight tweak of Lyra, and it's impossible for them to actually tell what, so for the ASIC manufacturer to actually tell what that's going to be, because there are a number of different combinations. So it's impossible just to make an ASIC that would cater for all of them, because as by definition, an ASIC is hard. Its algorithm is hard baked into its circuitry. So it would just be a slight change to Lyra. And if there was a situation where say that didn't work, there would be a situation that would be changing the proof of work to something completely different, which would cause more than enough problems for the ASIC.
Yeah, because that's kind of baked
two,
in as soon as they come out, right? As soon as that's developed, there's no changing how that hardware functions with the algorithm.
No, yeah. As soon as like the algorithm changes, the ASIC gets quote unquote bricked. It doesn't. It's specific. It's like the algorithm is like complete. Is like hard coded or whatever you want to use the word for on the hardware side. It's hard baked into it. So if you fork it, then that ASIC becomes useless in whatever it was trying to do.
Yeah. So when you think about it, if
more of speed
mm-hmm.
or anything, how fast can we react as a cryptocurrency? Like how fast can the devs get that ASIC off the network? Do we have an answer for that, or?
So I think there's a little bit of planning time, because you have to coordinate this with all of the miners. Of course, if the majority of your miners don't swap, it's ineffective. So I think there is like a little bit of planning time, but then again, kind of like the Ethereum miner, it came out that it was going to be developed and it was confirmed by Bitmain before, they have weeks, if not, I think months before they're going to actually ship any of that. So we have a little bit of a leeway time that gives that, that little bit of flexibility allows us to implement the plan. I do believe there are plans kind of in storage for, if that issue arises, but I think we should be able to handle it before anything actually hits the public to be able to be put on the network.
Yeah, so it's just more than that. It's usually the change would happen before the ASIC would be shipped. So what we've seen from Bitmain so far is that they have been mining with their ASICs before they ship them. So if you'd usually notice quite a substantial increase in hash rate, depending on the algorithm. Like if you take Searcoin as a recent example, ASICs came onto the network and absolutely dwarfed the hash rate that was currently on the network. So you would see that and then instantly take action, and then choose to change it. So yeah, back to you, Ken.
Yeah, so if anybody has anything else they want to add on the kind of Ethereum ASIC, I would call it a flop from Ethereum, because that's where the majority of your GPU cards are. It's a little disappointing, but I think we'll see what the community says as far as being able to do that, to fork or not to fork. We'll see what goes with that. And I don't know if anybody saw that Antpool had they retweet a Ethereum Classic type fork. So I'm wondering if this is kind of a backup plan that Bitmain or these ASIC builders are developing, that if they build an ASIC for a project, if the project decides to fork, then they just fork the project and create kind of their own classic version of it so that their ASICs still work.
Yes. So the crypto actually in question was actually Monero. So we saw Monero fork
Oh yeah,
recently,
yep.
and that was always planned by the community. And we've actually had Monero. Having Monero fork is actually a very interesting study case, because what we've had happen is there have been 4 different forks results from this, and one of them actually was retweeted by Antpool as being the original version of the chain. So even if you fork, Antpool and Bitmain will just fork you anyway, create a fork line there. Um, so we've got some data on how much Monero's hash rate dropped, so we're able to see the hidden amounts of ASIC miners that are actually on the network. So that isn't also a good insight, because again, it's quite hard to tell on these networks how much. You can't really tell if how much is ASICs, how much is botnets, how much is GPUs. There's not really any way of telling other than large substantial amounts of hash rate coming onto the network.
Yeah, so I just pulled up Antpool's tweet. So it was from April 6th, and they say, Monero has forked. If you have XMR before 6th of April, you can get an equivalent amount of Monero Classic XMC after April 6th. Find out more by joining the official group chat, and then they give their group chat. And so they have completely they built this ASIC, and Monero said they were going to fork, and they kind of were one step ahead, like, okay, well, that's fine. We'll just create our own token based on and fork it from your chain so our stuff still works. I think at the end of the day, does the community support that, or is the community going to get a bunch of Monero Classic, dump all of that coin, and then reinvest back into Monero? That the boldness of Antpool to be able to have this already kind of in their back pocket, it's a little telling as to how dedicated they are to kind of, in essentially, they're trying to take over this blockchain. If you're not with us, you're against us, we're just going to fork you.
Well, they actually have the power to pump, in terms of market making as well. They have the power to pump their own fork to ridiculous heights as well. So it's not even just taking over the chain; it's trying to take over the market, which is even more scary. So
yeah, we saw that with Bitcoin Cash, right? Like, when people, like, I guess they dubbed it the flipping. Is that what it's called? Was that what it was called? Yeah. It was getting pumped to insane prices, and I'd imagine a lot of it was not really quote unquote a real, more of just a pump from, like, their power in the space.
yeah, exactly. It is worrying, and that's why we're trying to bring it to light a bit more. And that's why I guess people have differing opinions, because some people see Bitmain as this massive threat that can it's a big looming threat, and others see ASICs as being less worrying. So in other parts of the space. So, but I think the overarching promise is that I think communities should keep their promises, and if they say they're going to fork, they should fork.
Oh yeah, what Fluffy Pony, one of the main developers of Monero, Ricardo Spagni. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, but he literally said, and you could go on the GitHub comments, I will do everything in my power to help the community prevent the proliferation of centralization inducing ASICs on the Monero network.
Yeah, I think that is telling of a developer who is standing behind the concept of ASIC resistance, and I think only time is going to tell what chains, what projects are going to fall victim to ASICs and this centralization and monopoly of the hash power. And we talked about this in episode 1 of our podcast. And if you didn't listen to it, I advise you to go back, listen to that podcast. There was a lot of good information about Lit Wallet, Lit Box, and the Medium post that we had pushed out regarding ASIC resistance and the rumor of the Ethereum ASIC miner coming out. This Monero fork is just further evidence of the monopoly that Antpool and Bitmain is trying to establish inside of the crypto sphere, and people will talk about, well, it's not that big a deal, it's fine. You're against innovation and things. It's like, no, I'm against centralization and monopolizing the rules of a blockchain, because if they take 51%, they can rewrite the rules, and what your belief in a project goes out the window, because now one person has control, or one entity such as Bitmain or Ample or what have you. They have control over it, and they can change it to whatever they want, and that's scary. I mean, a lot of people don't think about that. They don't think about the long-term ramifications of this type of ecosystem that they're attempting to build.
And we haven't seen the worst of it, because I think we got off how if you go back and look at the S2X drama, if any of you were around during that phase, people haven't seen a dirty hard fork yet. People associate hard fork with free money currently in the market, and there is a result where a chain can actually be destroyed. It's not as clean as you think it is, and everyone's free money, etc. It's not always happy and dandy. So if there is a situation where this does actually turn dirty, and everyone was saying, no, it's not a problem, no, it's not a problem, when it eventually does get a problem, everyone will kind of get a nasty shock.
I mean, one of the biggest things that what Canen brought up was that, like, this the monopolization, right, and the centralization, and people try to bring that against GPUs, right? But the whole point of ASICs is that and Plankton, you and I have actually spoke about this many times before, is that this is not some kind of innovation for, it's like, oh yeah, it'll help me maintain my system, it'll make one of my processes better. This is for consensus. This is for if you really want to bring it to all bare bones, this is you can change reality with this kind of centralization, as what Canen said, where it's like, well, if they get 51%, they can rewrite everything. That is changing reality. That is completely opposite of what the crypto space was when Bitcoin was created. That was a complete opposite of what was going to happen, because with that entity, right, just use a bank at that point, because the bank is the one that writes the quote unquote reality for us. You use a credit card, right? For whatever reason, they can stop that credit card transaction from going through. There's a whole process in between credit card swipe and whoever gets the money, whoever pays for it, and stuff like that. If you bring that to the crypto sphere, right, what's the point at that point, right? Why do you have a centralized entity in charge of reality?
Yeah, exactly. And that it is quite worrying, because when people sort of talk to other people and they're trying to get people into the crypto market, they talk about, oh, it's the decentralization, this and this and this and this. And in the harsh reality is, there are basically no project at this stage is decentralized to a stage where it can actually work and function to a high level. That's been proven to work at a high level. So yeah, everyone sort of dreams about this decentralized future, but so far we've got Bitmain controlling 38% of the hash power on Bitcoin. So yeah,
and that's only going to go higher.
Oh yeah, it's only going to go higher, and with the Antbleed rumors, if for any of you who hadn't heard about that, Antbleed was a suspected backdoor in all the ASICs in the Bitmain software that would allow them to turn off these ASICs, i.e., you could choose which ASICs were on and which ones were off. The only way to circumvent that was to change your routing back to reroute to your local address rather than back to Bitmain. So even the fact that thing is actually even built in and people found references to that is quite scary in itself. So yeah.
And the Antbleed backdoor has been around for a year now.
It has, and I think someone You can self-patch it, but again, even if the fact that exists is scary. Like that's the fact that someone can just turn off any of the ASICs that they have sold, and people say this isn't an immediate problem. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's true.
I mean, there's multiple points of failure, right? So, like, with centralization, right, you have a central point of failure, and right now, obviously, with Bitmain, they dominate the space, and like they're the quote unquote central point of failure. Now, as it was James actually lead developer of Vertcoin. You guys know him, right? For people who are listening who don't, James Lovejoy is the main developer, the head developer of Vertcoin, and it's like, with these like, switches, right? If they turn them off, like most of the like hash power just disappears overnight for Bitcoin. And that is disastrous. And people keep griping about GPUs where it's like, oh, there's only two companies, NVIDIA, whatever, AMD, and whatever other companies are there. But like, the thing is with ASICs, they're programmed for a specific cause. With GPUs, they are like, they're consumer grade. Like, if I have a machine at home, like, I do machine learning on it. I can do, like, if I wanted to get into the AR space, augmented reality, I can do that. And for anyone there's no like switch or anything like that, at least to my knowledge, right? And for anyone to tell me, like, let's say the government or whatever, to like, oh yeah, you can't like mine and stuff like that. Well, they have to turn my computer off. Like, they have to come into my house and turn off my computer. They're gonna have to tell everyone, hey, can you turn off your computers, please? As opposed to like an ASIC mining farm where it's like, oh yeah, well, we have the kill switch. There you go.
Yeah, and it is really interesting that it really goes deeper than that argument, because ASICs, I think ASICs and GPUs both have their upsides and downsides, but I think one of the ones that people don't really go over that frequently is the disaster scenarios, where like the absolute disaster from that scenario for Bitcoin would be that it's getting attacked so much that it had to actually change its proof of work, and that would be disastrous, because it's hash rate for all these ASICs which are mining the network. Suddenly, all those ASICs just become useless overnight, and yeah. So suddenly all these ASICs get bricked by their own network. And if you took a GPU would just, if you change the algorithm, it's just going to adjust.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it is advantageous to Bitmain to ever point that out, because nobody's going to buy the product. If any of that changes, if any of the circumstances surrounding the chain changes for whatever reason, the ASIC is bricked. With the GPU, it just automatically adjusts because it can do anything, any task that comes at it. It's not specified to a particular algorithm. So I mean, that plays a lot onto what we talked about in the last episode as well, with ASICs. But yeah, I think we can go ahead and kind of wrap up this particular topic, and we have two more topics that we want to get to, and then we're going to get to you guys' questions. Thanks for putting them into the Discord. Also, if you're on the YouTube stream, you can ask questions there, and we'll also address those as well if time allots. But I know this next topic is we're kind of already talking about it a little bit, but the lost, or the original vision is lost in translation, as far as ASICs and cryptocurrency and things of that nature. We're kind of already hitting on that. Does anybody have anything else that they want to add to that particular topic before we move into kind of the main focus of this podcast, which is going to be the March development update that came out yesterday? So anybody got any last words regarding the original vision of crypto and kind of how that's getting lost in translation now?
Yeah, I have something to say about that. I work at a liberal arts college. I supervise a lot of college students. And during the bull runs, a lot of my students caught wind of the fact that I was involved in cryptocurrency. And almost every single person who knew who I was had been approaching me and asking me how to buy when they knew absolutely nothing about cryptocurrency. So, I mean, that tells you right off the bat, they don't even know who Satoshi is, let alone what his vision of it was. They just care how the money is made.
No, to be fair, we all don't know who Satoshi is.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean.
I know who
No,
it's
no, I
not.
get it.
I know it's not Craig Wright.
Oh boy.
And I know that much. So I don't know if any of you guys saw that there was a conference. I don't know what I can't remember the name of the conference, but Craig Wright got called out for trying to be Satoshi Nakamoto, and it did not end well for him. I think it was Vitalik that actually called him out on that, but yeah, it is a little sad. I mean, but at the end of the day, money talks. People are getting into this space, and that's the reason why it became so popular and it's on CNBC, was because the price went up. People weren't getting excited about it because of the technology unless you're into the technology, unless you're into the underlying philosophy of cryptocurrencies. The price is what mattered to people, and unfortunately that the vision will get lost in translation when people are only caring about the price. I think it's our job, anybody who's in the crypto sphere, to educate people on the technical side and the philosophy behind cryptocurrencies, and also bring up when ASICs and these companies that try to do the centralization, it's counter to the original philosophy of cryptocurrencies, all cryptocurrencies. It's our job to call that out and to and to really address that.
I mean, yeah. So a few months back, I did write a piece when, we were peak bull run, and all of a sudden in January, everything tanked. I wrote a piece where I was advocating for people that are in this space. I understand money talks, yes, and I understand people want to make a profit off this, and that's as money talks, right? Definitely. But the thing is, the reason this market exists at all is because of the underlying technology. And and people don't understand that, and another reason it exists is the actual philosophy behind why this technology was being worked on for as long as it has been. If you go on this the Nakamoto Institute website, you get to see a lot of the work that's been put into the advent of Bitcoin. And when you don't have that understanding, and there's just a lot of people just kind of following that kind of money, it's one of those things where the whole philosophy and the whole purpose just gets lost. And it's well, we're trying to help create a different kind of world. We're trying to change how money works, and that's another thing that people really need to understand when they get into the space, is how does money work, and none of that is being talked about. And that's why there's a lot of end up of disappointment, and or people just not understanding the space, and it's time to go back to basics. What is the philosophy? How does the technology work? How does money work? And you want to be part of something that changes how we view things. With the internet, for example, change in the velocity of how we exchange information. And blockchain can be the advent of that if people actually understand how it works.
Yeah, and it is worrying that people, and at the moment the whole market is just being treated like stocks 2.0, and you see really really similar similar, I guess, similar structures, like share payouts are the same. So share buybacks are similar to coin burns. You've got dividends, which are similar, like proof of stake. And for most people, that's kind of how they see it. They don't really see anything else. They see this one makes me money, and I don't really care how else it functions. And unfortunately, in some of these, in this consensus is much more important. Like, you can get 51% shareholder in a company. That's great. They can direct the company. But if these are to become world currencies, if someone was able to gain a 51% on a network, or even disrupt the network, that is catastrophic. You cannot have that happen. This is a system of money. And that's where people don't really they're not really clicking with that yet, that all of the centralization and this is actually something we have to deal with. And if this isn't really dealt with, and we just move into the future with this, where the banking system's better. It's really if we don't actually achieve a level of decentralization that was outlined by Satoshi, it's not really. I guess the whole thing's not really worth it. It's just become a money grab of people just comparing it to stocks, and it'll continue that way. So until people respect what is being built and this stability of especially Bitcoin itself and the protocol that is actually being made, then we might start to see some progress in terms of people actually starting to look at well, what are the implications of this particular coin and how it's structured, and make their decisions. And ultimately, it is up to the decision of the users, because users make the network.
Yeah. And I think, and you know, and we can kind of wrap up the vision getting lost in translation there, with, you know, it is some, it's a critical time in the cryptosphere to really look at what you want this to be. Do you want to be this to be a money grab, or do you want this to be a fundamental transformation in the monetary policy system and build on the philosophy that you need to be your own bank? And Vertcoin's vision is you need to be your own bank. You guys have seen some of the lit box talk that James did at MIT. Our vision is you need to be your own bank. You need to have control over your own monetary policy. And I know for us, that is our vision. We're not here to, you know, I know a lot of people will ask, you know, what do you think the price is going to be in 3 months or whatever for Vertcoin? And honestly, we have no idea. We have no control over that. The only thing we have control over is building the technology that's going to fundamentally allow our users to be their own bank and to be able to facilitate their own financial, not financial independence, but their own financial well-being in their own sphere. You know, and I think that's the right attitude to have when it comes to cryptocurrencies. So the next topic that we're going to talk about, and this is kind of be the main focus of the podcast, is going to be our March development update. So I don't know if you guys saw that tweet go out yesterday. We have a development update that goes out every month. And we talk about what we did over the previous month. So I have it pulled up here on my screen. If you're watching the YouTube stream, you can see it. If not, I'll post a link in the Discord real quick. So everybody should be able to go check out the Medium article that we posted. I think it was yesterday. And you know, one of the main things that we had update this month is the Vertcoin Core Wallet is now defaulted with SegWit, so you can see that the codes and everything like that are reflective of that Bitcoin Core update. Anybody want to talk about the development? Any key things you want to highlight?
Yeah, sure. So, obviously the core development is quite nice, and people kind of, again, don't respect what Bitcoin actually does for the community. They see, oh, this is just a proof of work update, or this or that, or and they fail to really understand that practically everything is built on Bitcoin, and the whole system is much more intricate. It's really about building a stable framework for the future. And I think with the advent of Lightning, people have underestimated how stable a coin needs to be to run on Lightning. And we'll see. And again, we'll see how coins cope with that in the future. But a lot of it is then based on what Bitcoin does for us and for any other coins. So there was the Lit Wallet updates. So you can see some of the designs that we've been working on. So we've been working a lot on our user interface for Litbox and the Lightning Wallet. So the Lightning Wallet here is the only Lightning wallets, multi-coin Lightning wallets in development in the world from what we can tell. There is no other coin that I have seen work on a wallet that has multiple coins and Lightning enabled, even in mock-up stage, or even having any concept of how it will work. This is due to the way lit functions. So for those of you who don't know, the Lightning Network is actually just an implementation of a concept. So there are actually multiple implementations of Lightning Network. So there is actually, currently there is 4 implementations of Lightning Network. And the one we will be working with is Lit. We will have support for the other 3, just in case. So we'll have support for those. But the main one we'll be working forward with is Lit. So, and again, for those of you who don't know, Lit is made by Thaddeus Dreiger, who was the co-author of the Lightning Network white paper. And that's what we'll be basing our wallet on. So the great thing about Lit is at a protocol level, it supports multi-coin. And with the other implementations, they actually have to make their own fork of these Lightning networks to actually get their coin to function, and then in the future they will be interoperable.
Whereas like right now it's only on Bitcoin, right? That's why we saw the big beta release on Bitcoin, but you didn't see it for any other SegWit enabled coin.
Yeah, and even if it was made, it wouldn't actually currently work multi-coin anyway. It wouldn't actually work. So with Lit, Lit currently just supports SegWit coins. So basically, you could almost copy paste code to get it to work with any other coin. So in the future, the Vertcoin wallet could support could support 10, 20 coins like 5 years down the track. But it is moving towards that direction.
One thing, sorry to interrupt, Plankton, but I just inside the answers, questions, inside the questions channel, I did put a link to Lit because you specified the fact that Lightning is just like a concept and like there are different implementations of it. So I wanted to bring forth where you can find information on it and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it is something that's often overlooked, and unfortunately, main media outlets refer to it as the Lightning Network, which leads to a lot of confusion. But they're slowly to sort of coming to the fact that there are actually multiple implementations of these networks. So, yeah, you'll start to see more of that wallet soon. I guess more sections of it, but we just decided to show you guys just the home screen and what we've been working on.
One other thing to add to that is you were talking about how there were multiple currencies in it, and you told me something really cool about it, how you'll only need one address for every single coin in there. I think you should touch on that because I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, so people misunderstand that Lit is just about being a Lightning network, but Lit is actually more than just that. Lit actually is more like a transfer protocol that includes both on-chain and off-chain transactions. So the benefit of that is that currently the addresses for cryptocurrency are really fiddly. So, for example, I had say I have, I don't know, just a random selection of coins like Dogcoin, Vertcoin, Litecoin, and for me to say if I wanted to send coins to you, I'd need to know all 3 of your addresses. And in that case, I would need to know all 3 of your addresses. But with Lit, if you use the system through Lit, you'll have a Lit address. So you can just give me your Lit address, and then I can send coins to your Lit address. So it'll function kind of almost like adding someone through a phone number. So you add their Lit address, and then they can actually even have a display name. So they can be called Crypto Plankton or Harrison or anyone they choose. So when you've added someone, it'll then add it to your contact book, and then you can then send any coin to insert name here. and then like a phone book, it will then send those coins there. So that's really a massive step in the right direction for usability, because up until now, cryptocurrency has been around for quite a long time, and it's amazing that the space still is extreme, like wallets and exchanges. It's amazing how hard the space is still to use. There's a massive amounts of usability problems, and this is definitely a step in the right direction.
I mean, one of the biggest things, and sorry to again interrupt, is that, as you said, like it's been around for a while. And Bitcoin's been out since 2008, so it's been a decade, right? And we need builders. And, people are so focused on price action, that without builders, then the people who are focused on price action, well, they probably won't will be disappointed because there are not enough builders in this space, and this space is trying to help change, how we view, ownership, money, and stuff like that. So, for being able to, go into these updates and stuff like that, that's, I urge a lot of people, listening, if you have the skill set or you're interested in programming or whatever the case may be, help us build. This is if you believe in this vision, this is what we need. We need builders.
Yeah, and it's been amazing. Like as you said, it's got close ties to the early tech industry of when the internet was first around. Usability back then was horrible for most programs back then as well, because large amount of people who were actually interested in the space were just good at programming. Wasn't even really around back then as a major area of work. So largely these things, these big bulky programs that you see from early 2000s, late 90s, they're quite hard to use. And now we're sort of getting to this stage where blockchain it's got enough people interested that we're starting to see more people with different skill sets come into the area, and that's what we need. We need more people with more skill sets who are interested and want to help out. And again, like Bitcoin that's how Bitcoin started. Bitcoin is a bunch of people who really wanted to make this thing work, and that's all of those people, when they formed back then, again, they were the developers, and they still are, and they still believe in it. And I assure you, 90%, 95% of those guys do not care about the price action of Bitcoin. They care about making a solid protocol that will last and will not be broken down in any form. A solid protocol that will work for cryptocurrency.
And that's another reason why it has not necessarily failed. It's been so resilient. It's been because they're very thorough in what they're doing with that protocol. And that's, and that stuff takes time. You got to look, we're 9-10 years into this, and it takes time. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of coordination. It's not something that you can just quickly pop out, because when you quickly pop out things, then you have issues and bugs in code where you can have things like what happened with Verge this week, where we saw some stuff get messed up on that chain just because of a bug, and that can be due to sloppy code. And you need manpower and you need time in order to facilitate a strong, secure system that allows for no mishaps. But one of the other things I wanted to point out on this dev update was the iOS app. Now this is a temporary app that we were going to put out through iOS just to allow you to have a mobile version of your wallet. And we have been blocked 3 times now by Apple. They keep coming back with new excuses as to why they don't want to allow our wallet. I mean, it's a gorgeous wallet and such, but they said, they wouldn't approve it because they don't allow cryptocurrency wallets in their store, yet we found the rule that does allow for it. So we wanted to make sure everybody is aware that we are still trying to get this out on iOS. This is not the lit wallet, so this is just a temporary wallet that will be around until the new lit wallet gets released, which is going to be available on all platforms. So your desktop, your Android, your iOS. I even think we may even port it over to Windows phones. That way we can include everything there. But we're trying with Apple. We are sending a lot of strongly worded letters and things of that nature to them to try and get this squared away. So don't lose faith. And if anything, just try and, you can even ask Apple themselves in a ticket or what have you, why haven't you approved this? Or I don't want to spam them, but, just stick by and we'll try and get it hopefully approved by them soon. I mean, they keep citing things that don't make sense.
Yeah, it seems like we're being mucked around by an AI submission process. But hopefully we'll get that sorted soon. But for anyone who's still looking for an iOS wallet, Coinomi just actually announced iOS support for Vertcoin. So if anyone wants a place to store it, I guess that would be a go-to one at the moment if you do want an iOS wallet.
Yep. One other thing that I know a lot of people are clamoring for is NextMiner. So the AMD miner that we are building from scratch, and I know a lot of people said, well, the fund's been filled for months now. Why isn't it out yet? Because we have one developer who he has taken the task to build this, and we ran into a few bugs. We want to make sure that whatever product we put out as a project is of quality, not quantity. So we are much more inclined to take a little bit of extra time to make sure when we put something out, it's going to be, perfect. It's going to be optimized. You're not going to have any problems. So I know we are getting down to the end of the road with this particular project. So we're hoping to have an update with that here soon as far as it being out to the public. But no, we are still working on it vigorously, and we hope to have it to you AMD miners soon. I know a lot of you guys are clamoring for that.
Just to touch on NextMiner, I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding with what NextMiner actually is. Some people just think it's just AMD support, and that's what everyone kind of tends to mention. But NextMiner is actually a full you call it next generation miner for the community. It's probably going to be one of the most advanced miners that we've probably seen. But again, it's nothing to do with just AMD support. Eventually, NextMiner will have NVIDIA support as well. And then, so just it's not. I think some of you'd be pleasantly surprised about what it does. It's not just AMD support. It's a full functioning new program.
I'd like to bring it back a little bit right here because, what Ken has said that, we want to make the best kind of product out there. And I want to bring it back to I'm actually like a software engineer in the industry. And a lot of the way that things work in software and engineering space is that, it's called move fast, break things, right? And, when you're on a deadline or whatever the case may be in like industry, in the corporate world, sure, you need to meet some deadlines. You need to sacrifice some quality, whatever it is, some security possibly. And this is what we need to point out because people, I understand, it's very impatient. People get impatient and, it happens, right? You want your updates. You want to see some of your funds being used correctly. And we assure you that we are doing that correctly. It's just that, as I said before, we don't have we need builders, right? And, in the software engineering space, right, the move fast, break things is exactly how you get bugs, insecure networks and stuff like that. Canen brought out Verge and what happened with their bug recently, I'm pretty sure they just kind of hacked up a code base together or forked something and then just did a bunch of different things and then didn't even really test it, stress test it, whatever the case may be. And then you also see security breaches in some of the main companies, in the space, in the software engineering space. That's because they're just pumping things out without actually testing them, without actually auditing it and stuff like that. So, in this space, we don't want to like provide like, well, it comes out all of a sudden everything's just broken. We are sorry that it does take some time, but this is the nature of software engineering. The nature of computer science is that it's supposed to take a lot of time to create a good product.
And I know we have a lot of gamers in our community, and I'm 31. I've been playing games since I was 5, with NES and stuff like that. The company before they got acquired that I fell in love with as a teenager was Blizzard Entertainment, and they were notoriously known for taking forever to release a game, to release an update, but when it released, it was absolutely spectacular. And there's a reason for that. Their philosophy was, we're going to put out the absolute best product that we can. It may take some more time, but when it comes out, you're going to be very happy. And I think that Vertcoin, our philosophy is down that same line of thinking. So, look for the next miner update coming in the next month, next few weeks or so. We don't have a set deadline for that yet, but I know we are getting close. So, I know I don't want to put any false hope out there or anything. If we run into a bug, that may set us back a little bit, but we are pretty close on that. So, continue to follow our social channels, and you'll see updates with that soon. Now, one of the cool things that we're also trying to address is mining in the Vertcoin space. So we wanted to really take a hard look at the pools that are out there for Vertcoin mining, and we want to encourage everybody to run your own P2 pool node. This helps with decentralization. It helps make sure that one particular pool doesn't get a majority of the hash rate. So we wrote up a big thing about kind of the different fees and other traditional pools, what P2 pools are used for what types of miners and stuff of that nature. So check out on the Vertcoin blog, and you can see kind of where we are trying as a team to encourage our miners to be as decentralized as possible. So something else. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's again, that has been a touching point for us for increasing the decentralization of the Vertcoin pools. We'd like to point out it is all of our miners in every particular pool they're obviously grouped together, so it's not one person that controls the large pool, but there are definitely valid points that are raised in terms of what if a pool is DDoSed or, for example, and we lose a lot of hash rate. And again, that is a concern. So we've tried to address that with trying to get everyone to run a P2P node and push everyone out and actually get people more incentivized to spread out. And again, there's in every single project, we see, as I was mentioning before, about trying to push decentralization or the lack of decentralization in projects, I guess, there has to be, in most settings, there has to be a financial incentive for people actually to move, to move in that direction. Because we've seen systems, for example, you've seen the opposite in something like, say, master nodes, where people have tried to clamor to get master nodes or clamor to get systems where they even promote centralization in that case. And that is financial incentive. So it's whether, I don't know, whether it's possible to create a system that is financially incentive to provoke decentralization, and I guess that would be the holy grail if we're able to do something like that.
Yeah, and I think that might be on the horizon. We'll see. I mean, that's definitely an option that if we can somehow financially incentivize people to be decentralized, that would be the golden ticket, I guess, to solve that problem. So, in marketing news, we kind of broke down our blog post to different sections. So, I know we had the St. Patrick's Day promotion. I know there's a lot of our community that isn't in a country that celebrates St. Patrick's Day, but our idea behind this was we were trying to find a celebration that that central focus is the color green. So we went with St. Patrick's Day. It was coming up soon, so we ended up having 3 winners of that prize. So here you can see their Twitter handle. So go over to Vertcoin or hashtag Vertcoin Green on Twitter, and you can see all of the submissions that came in. There were some really good ones, and we may do this again next year. Let me know, or let our team know, how much you liked it, and if you guys want to participate again next year. The whole premise behind it was to be as social as possible. So if you go into a bar, into a pub, an Irish pub or what have you, where they're doing a big celebration, you just take a photo of you with a whole bunch of people behind you with the Vertcoin logo. And the idea was that you go to do that because you're trying to win some Vertcoin, but in return, you start talking to people around you about Vertcoin. You start, people ask you, hey, what are you doing? That was kind of the goal behind the whole promotion. The next big thing that we did this month was the fair mining campaign. Now we had a Reddit post that got #1 on RCC before it was taken down, and we had a lot of feedback from this. And I know we did have some questions in the YouTube stream asking who had actually joined this. So I know we had GRS joined. And I think there was 2 other coins that had joined the actual movement. We did have one coin that straight up said, do not involve us with this, and it was a little telling. They actually claimed, I think on their on some of their websites and stuff of that nature, to be ASIC resistant, but they didn't want to be involved with this. And I mean, from our point of view, it was, if you're not for fair mining, if you're not for decentralization of mining, then you are for centralization of mining. And at the end of the day, this movement was to bring discussion up in these communities as to whether or not they want centralization or not. And I think it's a hard conversation that the community is going to have to partake and figure out what direction it wants to go.
It's really about the individual as well, gauging their sentiment towards and whether and also understanding about whether they understand that mining centralization really is consensus centralization, and if consensus does truly represent ownership, then why are we using blockchains? Then so I think it has sort of, and even before we actually started this campaign, like the Ethereum plan to hard fork, and when they asked their community, that was actually before we started our campaign. So we did see that there was a rising amount of concern for ASICs in general. So at that time, we actually launched the campaign as we saw it was fit to launch it. So that has resulted in a lot of articles that have referenced Vertcoin as being pro ASIC resistant, and hopefully if this actually does gain enough traction, it will then hit news mainstream media, because it's not a small story for a space that claims to be the decentralized future. You've got a monopoly, ironically. So I think that is the goal. It's to more stir in people's minds their belief, and we have seen coins where they don't want to follow what they outlined to do. So in Ethereum's case, they chose to go against their white paper. And I'm sure the community can then sort that out. And if individuals don't feel it lines up with their beliefs, they may choose to go to another community. And again, we just wanted to provoke conversation.
Yeah, and I think, at the end of the day, we can promote, as the marketing team, we can promote this, through all of our social channels and things of that nature, but it's our community also. We need to take the talking points, the ideas, the philosophies behind decentralized mining, and you need to share that with everybody you know. You need to share that with all of your friends. When you're sitting around the dinner table with friends who aren't into cryptocurrency at all, first thing you want to do is explain to them kind of the idea of cryptocurrency, and then explain to them why decentralization matters. And this type of movement is something that we need to continuously push. It's going to be a continual effort on our team to keep this going even through the rest of this year. And how other communities react and respond to this, you'll be able to gauge who's actually interested in decentralization and who isn't.
Again, and at the crux of it, it is just who's really in this game to actually put your money where your mouth is, and actually force, I guess, strive towards proper decentralization. And yeah, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So the next thing we ended up going over was we had our first episode of Vertcoin Talk. So I know we had, I think between YouTube and SoundCloud, which is where we have them hosted right now, we have over 500 people who have listened to it. We had 2 downloads on SoundCloud. So share that with your friends and family. It's good for if you're driving or if you're on the train or something like that, going from work or going to class. Being able to have an audio version of people who are on the team that's talking about the real world, up-to-date topics of conversation in Vertcoin and in cryptocurrency, being able to listen to that as you travel or at your leisure. We're hoping to expand our ability to kind of bring this discussion to you guys as a community. So go back, listen to that first episode. There's a lot of juicy content in that. And yeah, we're going to keep trying to push these out maybe once every week or 2 weeks. We're not going to have a set schedule for the Vertcoin Talk. It's going to be basically when we have some news to talk about, when we have everybody is available, because one thing that everybody has to take into consideration is our team is worldwide. Right now Plankton is in Australia. So we're adjusting our times for live streaming and things of that nature to facilitate everybody's time frames. So look for the next one. We'll make sure to put out some announcements the next time we're going to do the stream. That way everybody has a little bit more advance notice. And yeah, just give us some feedback on what you think on the topics and anything we can do to improve the talk. So monthly key performance indicators you saw even in this bear market, and you can look through Google Trends and everything. The whole talk around cryptocurrency has fallen dramatically ever since December, but we're still increasing in our social media following and community, which is our goal. Even through these hard times, we want to continue to develop, continue to grow the community, and continue to encourage people to understand why they're getting in this space. Another thing that we had some comments about was the Vertcoin fund, the development fund, and some expenses that we had this month, which was the Vertcoin Foundation lawyer fees. So just so everybody is aware, we are setting up the Vertcoin Foundation. This does require lawyers in order to set this up and have this legal entity. So you did see the deduction of some Vertcoin from our dev fund in order to facilitate those services. We also, if you saw our tweet yesterday, there's actually now crypto lawyers who are accepting Vertcoin as payment. So those are not the lawyers that we used in order to set up the foundation. That was a separate group of lawyers that reached out to us wanting to know how they could accept Vertcoin. So those little steps are increasing adoption all across the world. So we're every little step is a good foot forward. But we are getting close to the foundation being set up, and you'll see more information about that here coming soon. So anything else you guys want to talk about as far as the dev update for March? I know we got a lot of things that are working in the background as far as app development and stuff like that, but anything else?
That's no, not for me.
I think we could move on to some questions.
Yeah, so yeah, let's go ahead. We have some questions on YouTube. We have some questions here in the Discord. Now, remember, if you want to ask a question, just go on up to the channel right above the listening channel that we're in right now, and you can ask your question. So, guys, if you just want to start picking out some questions, we'll go ahead and answer those.
I'll cover flying babies first. He's just talking about a reference to last episode. So he was talking about litbox and if what happens if your litbox turns off. So we outlined a solution, which was be having multiple litboxes. I'll just go back and cover the fundamentals of why you need a litbox and the different scenarios of who has control of your money. So if you say for example, you gave your litbox to a third company, so a third party company. So say, I don't know, say a major exchange hosted a service, and then you gave them your private keys and the ability to send your money for hosting your service. So they control your money and you just kind of access it, and you would have no need for a litbox. The problem with that situation is what you've just done is recreated the banking system on Lightning Network. You've given your funds to someone else and you do not own those funds anymore. They have your private keys. So we would have gone full 360 and we've just recreated the same system that we have today. So that is slightly better because it's non-reversible with the Bitcoin system, whereas a bank could reverse transactions. So yeah, there are some benefits in that, but again, you've just essentially recreated giving your money to someone else. The second scenario would be you host a VPS, which is a better solution, but again, it's just on a virtual private server. So you spin up a computer somewhere on a server, and then that becomes your litbox. So the software would just run on that virtual computer, and it would serve it to your computer. The problem with that is, again, you don't own the computer, but it is within the realms of possibility if you're happy to do so. But if you're happy to give your private keys and have them give them to some random company and having them sitting on a random computer, that's totally up to you. But it is your data, is your control of your money that's sitting on that computer. So the other situation is then you have a backup litbox. So you have it somewhere else. So your power goes out. You could have a litbox in another location, or you could even nominate a friends that you trust. The whole point is that you trust the person that you're giving it to. So the last option, which I just outlined then, is fundamentally different from the first one. So the first one, you've just recreated banking. The one I just outlined there, when everyone owns their own litbox and controls their own funds, is everyone has their bank has access to their own little bank. So it's this litbox is physically their crypto bank. So that changes banking. Everyone banks to a centralized banking point. To everyone physically has their own bank. And what have we been whining on about the whole time in crypto for the last 10 years? Be your own bank. And if that scenario doesn't really excite people about being able to do that at scale, I don't really know what will. So anyway, next question.
So I will actually want to address a combination of a few questions in here. Josip says, does the success of Vertcoin hinge on the success of Lightning Network? And Space Cake, how important do you feel VertBase and VertPig are to the success of Vertcoin? I feel that without direct fiat giveaways, any cryptocurrency is going to never be mainstream. So, few things, right? There is no one specific thing that is going to be a success that makes something a success. It's going to be a combination and a cluster of things. So, yes, well, the Lightning Network, the success of the Lightning Network will definitely contribute to that. But, also stuff with like VertBase and VertPig, right? Direct fiat giveaways. But also it's the community, right? Of course, our developers are working tirelessly, around their jobs or just, however they develop, to be able to bring cryptocurrency into the main light. Of course, the marketing team, Canen, Plankton, who also does development, myself, we also work tirelessly to make sure that, we are still at the forefront of this. So, and it also depends on you guys. You guys believe in the project, right? As what Canen said earlier, if you're at the dinner table and there are people that are not into cryptocurrency, facilitate that conversation. Conversations need to happen about this. If you are a good person that does like good public talks and stuff like that, try to facilitate one at a university. Contact me, B17Z on University Outreach, or if you just want to do talks in general where you can commandeer a space for a bit, really put forth, your vision and what you believe in, and that is going to also help contribute to the success, because without the community, without people believing in it, the success is not going to be there. Currently, right, people are very afraid of regulations and stuff like that, especially in the US. But the fact of the matter is, this is a technology, okay? And governments, large entities, they don't want, they may say, oh, it's a scam, it's this, it's that, whatever it is. But in the back of their minds, it's technology, and they know technology displaces, the old guard. Look what happened with the advent of the internet, and what happened with for example, online photo albums, right? Kodak, and I believe you can look this up, they had an ad campaign in 2007, 2006, or whatever it was. You could look that up. They were saying, oh, we're going to be against this whole online, don't quote me on that directly, but they were not in tune with the technology that was coming out. And then Instagram comes out, and how many times has Kodak, declared bankruptcy, or they've declared bankruptcy? How many times they've been at the forefront of failure? And now obviously they held their own ICO recently. So it really is just coming together of the community, coming together of people with like minds, and have some vision of what this world can be, to be able to promote the success of Vertcoin or just cryptocurrencies in the mainstream. As I said, governments just want to, the reason there's bans or anything like that is that they want to slow it down to see how they can leverage it themselves as well. It's not going to be like, oh yeah, everything, bye-bye. No, that's not going to work. It's a technology. They don't want to stunt technology. Technology is what moves us forward.
Yeah. And, I think it's well said to address those points. One of the other questions that came was from Akua. Would we only fork after an official announcement of an ASIC is released, or as soon as the network differs, difficulty raises a lot? So one thing, we want anybody who makes ASICs to not even think about making one for us, because we're so vocal and our mindset is so dead set on making sure that whatever they produce, if they spend $1 million in R&D to make this ASIC, that it's the most expensive paperweight to ever be created. So we want to make sure that is communicated effectively to them, and they need to understand that we're fully behind making sure that whatever they dump into this hardware, it becomes a paperweight. So we will, as soon as some information comes out that there's rumor, or if we see the network difference rise a lot, if the network difference rises, we're going to investigate that. We're going to look and see, what could be causing this, and we'll take steps to make sure that, we'll let them go through making the hardware, but it won't be usable. It'll be a paperweight, and I mean that's kind of our outlook on ASICs and the way we will address them as they come down the road. I mean, look at our history. We have forked in the past because there was, I think it was either rumor or possible rumor of an ASIC coming down the road for a particular algorithm. So we did the work, and we made sure that wasn't going to be successful. So another question was, when will the iOS wallet be released? So the wallet is done for iOS. The current gen wallet, not the lit wallet. That's kind of our next gen wallet where we're going to have multi-coin support and things of that nature. But the iOS wallet is done. It's finished, designed. It is in Apple's hands. So Apple has to give us permission. This is kind of that centralization of authority on Apple's part. They have to give us permission in order to put it on their store. So we're going back and forth with them, trying to get it on the store. They keep coming back with ridiculous reasons why it can't be on the store, but we're continuing to push with that. So as soon as Apple says it's good to go, it will be released, and you guys will be the first to know about it.
Space Cake also says, how come there has been no public talks info from Vertcoin about Litbox apart from James' talk at the Bitcoin Expo? I'd love to know more about it. But info seems all unofficial. I mean, this is a concept, right? And if you go back to, I mean, I wasn't part of that first episode, but Plankton, really like explained the whole concept and the perception and the vision for it. As soon as more progress is made, and as soon as we hash out all the details and stuff like that, then yes, we're going to probably have more official talks on it. Plankton, can you expand on that?
Yeah, sure. So it's just really making sure that all the specifics, again, just what Ben said, that are all ironed out, because we don't want to start sort of pushing something that's I don't know, slightly different, or or even too early as well, because you get the problem where some people announce something way too early, and then they're sort of asking for it, or when they're expecting. And in the crypto space, it's kind of like, oh, is it 2 weeks away? Is it a week away? And at Vertcoin, we love to keep everything transparent about what we do, and share with you guys what we're working on. So yeah, the main thing is just educating, because at the moment, Litbox is actually quite an interesting topic by itself. Talking to it by itself. So just comparing it to, say, the other implementations of Lightning, they haven't really even thought about how this would work so far. So again, this is something that's the first of its kind, and we'll definitely update you when we have more info.
Something else to take into consideration: if you see any information about Litbox come from anywhere other than an official source or an official team member of Vertcoin, take it with a grain of salt. So a lot of people were putting out like FAQs of Litbox and things of that nature. And if you look at James's slides from that MIT Expo, he talks about where we are with Litbox, when we're the timeline that we're looking to hopefully have a prototype squared away, which would be end of Q2. We're looking to unveil a prototype. We're still developing the software, but we want to make sure the software is nailed down, and then we're going to be looking at the hardware side of it and how we're going to facilitate that. So those talks are still going on behind the scenes. The talk from James, that was a dev talk talking about the whole concept and the idea behind Litbox. But so you will have to wait a little while before you'll actually be able to see the physical box. But we did want to get that idea out there. We did want to get people understanding that, look, Vertcoin, we're thinking years down the road. We're not thinking right now, what can we do in order to pump and dump or what have you. We hate the thought of pump and dumps. We're looking at 5 years from now, how are we going to make it so that you can walk into a 7-Eleven or into your local grocery store and buy groceries or buy a product or buy a service with the coins that you were able to mine on your gaming rig over the last 2 weeks? You can facilitate the security of the network and then be able to use the earnings from that to buy a product or service. So when you see anything about Litbox, just make sure it's coming from us.
One thing I want to point out real quick to just branch off a little bit on what you were saying about going into a grocery store or, a coffee shop, whatever the case may be. Think about the current system that is right now. I don't know who's listening or who will be listening who owns a small business, right? In New York City, it is extremely hard. That's where I'm from. It's extremely hard, for restaurants, to differentiate themselves, whatever the case may be, especially with rent being so high and stuff like that. Now, add on to the fact that, credit cards, right? As a user, right, you put in your credit card, you really don't notice anything different. It's like, oh yeah, well, here's my credit card. I have enough a limit of it, and, done, right? You swipe it, whatever the case may be. What you don't know is what happens after the swipe. And after the swipe, it takes sometimes up to 3 days for, these small businesses to see these credit cards transactions to go through. They see their funds, and, and not to, on top of that, the rent seeking fees of certain credit cards. There's a reason that many shops in New York City, they only accept cash, or they don't accept a specific credit card company because all the fees. When you think about stuff like that, like, and what we at Vertcoin are trying to achieve is that we don't want to rent seek. We want to facilitate, these businesses. We want to facilitate, like, fair transactions where, we're just still, like, you don't want to stare at, like, if you're a small business, or you don't want to stare at your monthly, like, your expenses and be like, well, half of them went to fees, So it's something to think about when you think about going to a grocery store, and like what we think about when we go forward into the future, where we want to try to make this mainstream.
Yeah, and that's what really excites me in development. It's nothing I like development and actually seeing the system work in every single aspect. Like in the and that's that's kind of thing that got me into Vertcoin. It's like all the different aspects, be it Next Miner, be it Lit, be it Litbox, be it the wallet, be it other implementations that will come. We're trying to just give you the most unadulterated version of it, just the pure form, like no strings, no nothing. We just want the best form of it, and that's all we're trying to give you. We want to set standards in for the cryptocurrency world. And yeah, that's what we're really out here to do. So yeah, we'll keep moving forward.
Awesome. You guys have any other questions for us? Anything before we wrap it up? I know we've been streaming for about an hour and a half now. If anybody has anything else, we can go ahead and start wrapping this up. I'll give just a second for anybody to ask any questions real quick. And something else, we want to hear from you guys on the next episode. So what topics would you like us to cover? Anything in, specifically that you'd like to see on the next Vertcoin Talk? We'll try to give some advance notice as to when we're going to be streaming that here in the future. We did have a question just come in. Is there a way to estimate how many users are using the Vertcoin network currently? Yeah, I think there's a block info site that will do that. Hold on, let me see if I can pull that up real quick, and I'll show it on the stream.
And while he's pulling that up, I want to just say real quick that I will be leaving the questions channel open while Vertcoin Talk is not going on. So if you guys do have any, concerns, questions, anything, and you want to post it in that channel, the next Vertcoin Talk that we do, we will see those questions and we will do our best.
There is one thing I think that we may have missed. So BDF 1838, what are plans there to expand VTC's brand from just anti-ASIC to Lightning Coin that is anti-ASIC, or some similar refocus on the upcoming software and hardware ecosystem around Lit? I mean, we kind of
doing that.
I did that, yeah.
I didn't even realize. So I was looking at my apologies. We kind of like addressed that in bits and pieces, and so my apologies.
I can address the branding actually.
Sure.
The brand
right.
part of the question. So the branding aspect will be that products are produced by Vertcoin. So there may be actually sub brands in the future that say, for example, like Next Miner is Next Miner produced by Vertcoin. So it's that you might see that brand a bit more. Made by Vertcoin, and that just reflects our push for adoption across the cryptocurrency in the cryptocurrency world. It's producing quality products for to push cryptocurrency adoption, and in the same way that Bitcoin produces the core fundamentals of how Bitcoin works, we want to be the people who push the core fundamentals of how user interaction works and how all these products that haven't existed before, like the Lightning Network interaction facilities and the rest, is something that we really want to push. So that's how we want to really contribute to the space. So yeah, that's what we'll see from the branding area.
Yeah, and something else that you're going to notice is, like right now, Vertcoin doesn't have a merchandise page. We don't have any of that. So a lot of that stuff hinges on the foundation. We want to make sure that we have a legal entity in place that can have, I guess, necessarily ownership of all of the assets for Vertcoin. So we can have merch store, that those funds and things of that nature will help contribute to being able to hire on developers full time, to be able to hire on, key asset individuals to continue to grow the project. Because right now, I mean, you think about it, anybody who's in this Discord knows that they can pop in at any time, ask a question of a developer, and they're going to get a response relatively quickly. If you ask a question of anybody on the marketing team, you're going to get a response pretty quickly. And when you sit back and think about it, that is amazing for individuals to volunteer their time and effort and their expertise to a particular project. And we're doing that. We're competing with projects that have multi-million-dollar ICOs and airdrops and all this other stuff, and we didn't do that because philosophically we believe that everybody should have a fair chance to mine just like anybody else. No one should have a leg up, basically. But as a project, we welcome anybody who wants to help contribute to the project and help us with the development and help us with the marketing side and things of that nature. Please reach out to us, and Discord's going to be the best place to reach us at any point in time. All right. I think if that's all we got for today. I did post the bit info chart for Vertcoin here in the Discord. So if you want to learn or see any of the stats surrounding the blockchain itself, that is a good place to go. So you can check out all of the stats that are there. But if we don't have any more questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up this podcast for today. There will be a video on demand of this stream on our YouTube channel shortly after we end this podcast, and reach out to us and let us know what you'd like to see in the next one. Everybody, we want to thank everybody for joining here in the Discord, asking questions, and for me, myself, Canen, I want to thank everybody who participated in today's podcast. So Ben, B17Z, remember he is kind of heading up our university outreach. If you are a university student in and around the New York area and would like somebody to come to your school to talk about Vertcoin, to talk about blockchain, hit Ben up. I know he has done a few talks and is more than enthusiastic to facilitate that request. And then we have Plankton also on here, Crypto Plankton. He posted on Reddit yesterday, I believe. He's basically a 24/7 AMA here on our Discord. He's always on. He's always working on projects and is more than happy to ask to answer any questions that you may have of Vertcoin or of kind of how the markets are going and things of that nature. And then we had Harrison, who is one of the head mods here on Discord. If you have any questions about Discord, any questions about the project or anything like that, he is more than happy to help out as well.
Quick, if you guys have any suggestions or improvements that you feel we can make to Vertcoin Talk, feel free to PM me or at me.
Yeah, and you can also DM the Vertcoin Twitter, anywhere. Just we want to hear from you guys. So with that, we're going to go ahead and close out today's Vertcoin Talk. We want to thank everybody for joining, and we'll see you guys in the next one.